Welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Mark Privratsky from the world famous Blackheart Bar. I'm in the Black Box Theater of the Lounge. That's what I call it when I have the curtains drawn. We're lucky today we're wrapping up really the college season. I want to say thank you to Patreons for everyone who supported this fall. Matt's been traveling. I've been covering more from home, but we'll have D1 wrap-up pieces, D2 pieces, and your money and your support helps us with that. So thank you. Like the show we have today, we're talking to the Minnesotan who made the deepest run, you'd have to say made the biggest splash in the tournament this year, a forward for the Penn State Nittany Lions, all Big Ten this year, Kaitlyn MacBean. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Kaitlyn coming in, we always give a little bit of a break, except when the season ends. You're like, we don't want to talk to, we don't want you to have to talk about your season 2 days after the tournament wrap. So, but looking back now, I mean, obviously, for you, we'll talk about the team as well, but for you personally, hitting form at the right time, having 4 goals, 4 assists, and then in 4 games in the tournament. So just, I mean, how did that feel for you personally, just to be able to have that output then when you dream of having it?
Personally, I think it's very rewarding. I mean, my first 2 years of college, obviously I was injured. So I think being able to finally step up in this way for my team felt great. I obviously couldn't have done it without my teammates who supported me the whole way and then set me up for success. But yeah, no, it feels great to be able to step up in the way that I did.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, you had the longest wait, as long a wait as you could really have, because you were a first year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in that classic class of who had to be a first year. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. I would have failed college if that was my first year, 100%. So you have first year, that's already tough. Everyone knows that year, all the players, and just to be in college your first year. And then you're hurt the next 2 years. How did when did the injuries occur? Like, talk to us about that. When you got injured, when you're like, finally we get to play, it's 2021.
Yeah, my timing was actually really tough because we had a spring season in 2021. So the 2020 season got pushed back to 2021. Mm-hmm. I tore my ACL 2 weeks before the season started.
Yeah.
And so the timing, in the spring. So the timing actually was, my surgery was in February. So then I was out for sophomore season as well, just because the 9 months goes through that. So my timing was probably the worst.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had my ACL for basically freshman season and sophomore season, just because of how the timing worked out.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine the challenge of that. I mean, and then you did get to play last year, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, you played, but of course, working back from an ACL, and then it's a very good team. They have a lot of good players, so you have to earn that spot, But then, so I'm wondering if there was a time this year you were playing more early in the year. You scored some goals. Was there a time that you felt like a level of indication of like, I'm at a place I've been hoping to be? When I was sitting there injured, I was picturing what it's going to look like and how I'm going to feel. And then did you feel that sometime this year?
Yeah, I think the first time I kind of like felt a glimpse of it was after our like West Virginia TCU weekend.
Yeah.
That was the first game that I started was TCU. And West Virginia, I scored the game-winning goal. And so I think the combination of those 2 games like was huge for me. And then kind of kept that going, but then once we hit the Ohio State game was when I really like hit my stride, I feel like. And after that, I was very confident in my play and like wanted the ball at my feet on the field, which I hadn't really felt before, like since club.
Yeah, right. Well, and how much of it was, I mean, it was touch, and then also just did your leg, when did your leg feel right? I mean, like, did you feel like you could do what you used to be able to do? I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah, I honestly, my rehab was great. Our trainer here is incredible. And so when I came back, felt basically normal. I mean, for a while I was wearing my knee brace. And so that like felt a little off.
Yeah.
And I wasn't super used to that. But credit to her, like I felt great when I was coming back. And like last year, I was behind Allie Schlegel, who is obviously playing in the NWSL now. So I wasn't super angry about her playing over me. She's a great player. And I loved looking up to her, being behind her. It was a great challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like after she left was when I realized that like I had to step up. And so
yeah, well, and you must be, I mean, it's going to a program like that wins, it always wins. I mean, always making the postseason. you both think to yourself, I'm a really good player and I belong there. But then like when you're there, you have to feel the weight to actually, see that and actually become that person. I wanted to ask you about the trainer. Is it Andra Thomas? Is that the person?
Andra, yeah.
Andra Thomas. So Andra, shout out. She must have been there when the team started, maybe 29th year at Penn State. Well, no, I mean, but
she's been here for a while. I don't know exactly how many years, but she's been with women's soccer for
29. Is what I saw. 29.
Yeah, I know she's been here since before Coach got here. But she's great. She's awesome. We wouldn't be who we are without her. So she's so great.
Well, the reason I really looked at your assistants and your assistant coaches too, and I'll ask you about the coaching staff in detail a bit later too, but Ann Cook and Tim Wassel, and then like Kara Cook, who is also in the operations. You must have kind of been familiar with them, having to hang out and do your rehab. Like that must have been a lot of that first year and a half of you were probably tight with them, or then even maybe the training part of it.
Yeah, I was super tight with Andra my freshman year and sophomore year, obviously, because I was in the training room every day. And the coaches would always make the rounds and they would come show up in the training room, see what I was doing. So I always felt the support from them, which was great.
Yeah. How did you grow from having to sit out? Because I bet you'd been playing 2 games a week for 15 years. So if you hadn't had you had a major injury before?
I hadn't really had anything major. Like I had small little knocks, like sprained ankles, but nothing that was out for more than 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was a big adjustment. I think when I committed to Penn State, I knew that I probably wasn't going to play much my freshman year just because the school I was going to, and that was my decision because I wanted to be, I don't know if you've heard the phrase like small fish in a big sea or big fish in a small sea. Like that was what they asked me when I was committing. And I wanted to be at a place that would challenge me and push me to be better because it would obviously help me as a player and a person. And so I was somewhat prepared, but I think in a different way because obviously when I got injured, I wasn't able to train or do any of that. And that was really, really difficult and something I'd never experienced. But with the support from my team and my coaches, I always felt like I was still needed and I still played a role, which I thought was huge and helped me a lot.
And you're like, trick question. I'm going to be a big fish in a big pond. I'm going to do both, and we're going to win. And you're like, wow, I've never had a player be so confident. No, I did. But was it part of it too? I mean, people maybe joke about strikers like, well, like they see the game so specifically, and it's kind of narrow. Like, did you feel like you had a broader? Because you had to just watch games, and you're having to try to get value out of sitting in film. Normally, maybe if you're in film too, you're like, I want to get through this and get through my mistakes so I can go play. You didn't get to play. So I wonder if those things were more, you got to get more out of those type of things.
Yeah, I gained a lot from it. And it's actually weird because when I got here, they switched me to center back. So I was playing center back for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I played center back for MTA's WPSL team 2 summers ago too. And so I was playing center back for a quick second, which was a big adjustment for me because I've obviously played the 9 my whole life. And then about 5 or 6 games into last season, they switched me back to the 9.
Wow.
Yeah. So a few games into the season last year. So the first year that I was playing. So that was a big
you had really watched, you were really observing the game from a different perspective. So that whole time you spent learning the game differently, directly different. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that benefited me a lot because learning how center backs work and what they look for has helped me as a forward because I know how to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
And so I think I gained a lot from that.
Yeah, and it is something. I mean, it makes sense why people are able to switch because it's rarer than a wing to an outside back. But people do that, and especially switching from levels of play because you could probably have been a great college center back, but what's the peak of your, where can you be the best of yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you been the old vet helping young people with their injuries now? Because you had to deal with that mentally.
Yeah. I mean, I try my best. We've honestly had quite a few knee injuries on this team, and so we have a good squad of us that help everyone. We actually only had 1 knee injury prior to this fall, and it was a freshman. So I think it was a goal of mine, especially, and a few of my other seniors and 5th years that have torn their ACLs to help her as much as possible. Because it's hard not traveling, especially when other people in your class are, and staying home or watching from home is really difficult. And so I think just supporting her as much as we can was a big goal of ours throughout the season.
Yeah, easy for you to be able to relate. What do you, in terms of, I want to ask some other questions after a quick ad break, but to wrap up just in terms of like this year, I mean, a really successful season. We'll talk about the broad overall success Penn State's had, which has been long running, but still the only so many times you've made it to an Elite Eight, which you got to do this year. So when you just think back now, like I said, having a little bit of time, like what are your thoughts about the team and just maybe what stands out to you of like your lasting memories that you're taking with it, the positive ones, I guess. I mean, also the negative ones, those can be good motivation as long as you use them well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually just asked this a few days ago. When I look back, like I think that our team had like this overwhelming sense of belief, like from top to bottom. And I think that's what got us where we were. And we always talk about like playing your role and like doing your best, like to your ability, like of doing your role, whether that's like a bench player coming off the bench, a starter, injured, reserved. And I think we value like each role the same. Like it doesn't matter if you're a starter, if you're injured, if you're a reserve, like it all is equal. And I think that like everyone doing that to the best of their ability, like got us where we were.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, I mean, it clearly for you, it ended up clicking right at the right time. So, I mean, it feels good to at least know, like, yeah, I'm sure you have maybe some regrets about the NCAA tournament games, but I mean, you can't regret too much. Like I wasn't able to put, my foot forward and show myself. So that's, I mean, motivation for next year.
For sure.
Quick break to give a shout out to our sponsors. You can see them in our background here. Pentz Homes, one of our long-running sponsors. I live in a Pentz home, and multiple of my friends have had such good experiences getting homes from them. Lydia and Nate are really helpful. They work with Angie at Luminant Financing. They'll help you do remodels, anything you need. And then secondly, Modist Brewing, which we rep more in person, street team style. I wear it at the Black Art, but they give us product. They're a really cool brewery. I work at the world's only queer soccer bar, and they're a supportive brand that has clothing that's inclusive. I like that. People at the soccer bar like it. So thank you guys for all of your support for us to be able to cover the women's game. But we mentioned your coach. So the head coach, Erica Dombach, 15 NCAA tournaments in a row. I'm gonna quiz you a little bit on some of these successes as well. There's a lot of numbers, so I'll give some, but 15 NCAA, that is crazy. 11 Big Ten titles, multiple time National Coach of the Year. So how'd you end up at Penn State? Seems so random. Why would you choose such a place? The coach like that. Oh my God. I did not know. I knew you were successful. I did not know that was the level of success you're looking at. So, and maybe you felt like, how did you get to Penn State? Maybe you feel more like lucky you get to go.
I honestly just reached out to a bunch of colleges in my recruiting process and like kind of waited to see who would reach out back. And when I was looking, I knew I wanted to go to a Big Ten school just because I wanted to stay somewhat closer to home. Like that was kind of a goal of mine, but I didn't necessarily want to stay in the state of Minnesota. Because I wanted to go explore somewhere new just because I've grown up there my whole life. And I reached out to Penn State and they came to a game at ECNL Florida. And so that's where I actually first met them and they saw me play. And I remember one of the coaches, Tim, reached out to me after and was like, we're interested, like all this stuff, and like wrote this whole email to my coach, Dave Alberti. And I was in shock because they had won the national championship like the year before, I think at that point.
Yeah, like 2015 or something.
Yeah, and I think this was 2016 or like maybe January of 2017 when they reached out to me, but like it was just so recent. And so I was in shock because I was like, am I good enough to go to a team that just won the national championship? Like, I don't know. And I visited then a few months later and just fell in love with it. I don't know how you couldn't at this place. I mean, everything about it is just amazing. And like the coaching staff, I love them to death. Like they value us so much as like people, which I loved and wanted that in my recruiting process. And then like the team is the best family I've ever been a part of. And I think they bring out the best in each other. And I saw that on my visit. And then Penn State also has some other like really cool things to it. Obviously the football team's awesome, which is so cool. But they have this organization called Thon, which I thought was really cool. And it's the largest student-run philanthropy for childhood cancer. So they do this like dance marathon in February every year where students will stand for 46 hours straight to raise money. and the amount of money they raise is insane. And I thought that was so cool. And so that was another thing that drew me here.
Yeah. So just a lot of, I mean, you just felt it collected a lot of boxes for you. So there wasn't any, I mean, because it's just such a big choice, I guess, in my mind as a fan and kind of like, you know, viewer, I would have pictured, oh, there must have been at least some other, like, you must have at least visited other schools, or did you not?
No, I visited other schools.
Yeah.
Penn State was the.
I'm sure your parents would make you as well, right? Like,
yeah. This was the second to last school that I visited, but I honestly wasn't even interested in my last school because I knew I was coming here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I visited other schools first.
Yeah, right.
Because I think I would have just come here if I'd only visited here.
So it wasn't, at the end of the day, once you visited there, it wasn't difficult for you in terms of like clear choice. All right. We won't make you list those schools. You can if you want. We like at least the players when they're done playing college. Look, you have to pick between someone. It's like, you know, it's going to be other big schools. Yeah. But it's interesting to hear those stories. Do you have, I have it on here, and since we were talking about the era of you being recruited and it starts so young, I did look up the 2019 All-Metro team you were a part of, Miss Minnesota, by the way. lot of little ribbons and bells we can talk about with Kaitlyn. But I wanted to see how many other players on that team you could. I also have the huge all-state list. That's huge, and there's girls from like Bemidji and stuff. I don't know how you'd remember, but the all-metro, I feel like the 11 or and I have the second.
11.
Team.
Okay.
There's the first team and there's second team. How many do you think you can get? It's 2019.
I think I could get a few.
A couple, I don't
think might mix up which metro people are in.
Right. Well, and people, I will say, some of I think at least a few of the players like didn't keep playing, even like for the people who follow like D2 soccer on our site. Like some of them just didn't play college soccer, but there's at least a handful. I would say between the two, I mean, there's at least 10 D1 players.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, was Hannah Polidal on the second team? I'm pretty sure she was on it with me, or maybe she was on
in another year.
I wanted to say she was on because she was on the team with me at Breck, and so I know that she was mentioned at one point, but I don't remember if it was the same.
It might have been junior year.
Yeah. Sophia Bowman was probably on there.
Yep. Good to the U. Yep.
Yeah. I don't think is Paige Peltier like eligible for that.
Yeah, she was on that. Yeah,
okay. I'm trying to think of who was on my club team that like would have been on it.
Yeah, there might have been a couple from there. I don't know specifically, but no, I mean, there's a couple other like people who ended up at the U, like Abby Franson, and Claire Harper.
Yeah.
Claire Gagne is one of the big ones in terms of like she's a huge star at Brown. She's
killing it. She's doing so well.
They're a huge team, and then like Jelena Zabilich ended up at the U. Olivia Lovix, an NDSU person, Caitlin Hansen and Kelsey Callio at NDSU. So not teams, you don't play NDSU quite as much, but it's a lot of, as you'd expect. And then some other like NSIC standouts. Yeah. Olivia Groutman, who went to St. Thomas.
Yeah. I know her. She played for Aurora. Almost everyone you listed was on one of my ECNL teams.
Totally, yeah.
Everyone actually.
The Thunder Academy tends to pull them in, and otherwise, do you? I mean, how many times have you played some probably former high school rivals like at Wisconsin and stuff? Like, how many times have you encountered like girls who were your close teammates or former rivals, and then playing them in college again?
Pretty often. I mean, Wisconsin obviously has a few. Like just played Dara, Allie Fine, Maddie Poor, Maddie Hug. Like they all played for MTA, so I know them pretty well.
Yeah.
And we played Wisconsin here, obviously. They came to us. So it was fun to play against them. Mm-hmm. And then we didn't play Minnesota this year or the year before. So I've never personally played against them.
That's funny.
Which is really tough because I'm sad because Abby Franson was one of my best friends in high school.
Yeah.
So I'm sad that I never got to play against her.
Well, and your family never got to get an easy like your extended, just all of your family and like friends never. Well, hopefully, maybe this fall then.
Maybe this fall, but I don't know. UCLA, USC, Washington, all that.
Very crowded.
Yeah. But they came to us my freshman year, so I got to see them at least when they came. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Sophia Bowman was on my team for club senior year, and so was Kaya.
Yeah.
And I played with Sadie Harper as well, so I played with a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And Jelena, I played on a summer team with at one point.
Right.
Because we went to Sweden together. And so I've played with a lot of them. And then obviously like Northwestern had Lily and Sydney.
Yeah.
And I played with both of them as well. So it's cool. It's really cool to play against them because it's like, hey, I know them. Like they're doing well, they're being successful, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's easy for people who, if they pay attention to what we do on Equal Time, like we hope it makes it easy. It's the whole point is like to actually have some background and like connections like that, because so many of the people who play, even in like the NSIC, will play in summer league teams that we cover, and then a lot of, obviously, the Summit League is tons of these players and tons of your former teammates. So yeah, it certainly makes it easy for me to just start recognizing some names, and it makes the game more fun. Going back to talking just about your coaching staff, because I don't want to just leave it at the numbers of their wins, which says a lot, but lots of people win too. And it's like, but I mean, so for you to explain to, you know, like, if you were like, when you're done and you graduate and like you give like the nice speech to like the team at the end of the year about like why the coaches are good, what is it about Erica and her coaching staff? Like you could just say they have really good players and they're good coaches and they stay there so they keep winning, but something must be under the surface that maybe you could shed light on of like what makes them uniquely successful.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, Coach and Anne were actually college teammates, and so they've been with each other forever.
Cool.
And so I think that connection like brings a lot to our team. And also just like the fact that they're not going anywhere. Like we all know they're not going anywhere. And that was something in my recruiting process where Coach was talking to me and she was like, I'm not leaving here. Like her family's here. Like she has no reason to leave here. And she's been offered like women's national team coaching positions, and obviously assistant coach on the full team.
I know.
Has been in the past and has that experience, but I think it's so cool that like this is where she chooses to stay.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, obviously they're really good coaches, huge, but like I said earlier, they emphasize the like person aspect of it. And I think someone that really focuses on that for us is Kara Cook. And she's our director of ops, and we call her like our glue because she focuses a lot with us on like the mental game and what that brings to it. And like, I mean, we have honest conversations with our team. Like if something's going wrong, we figure out what it is, whether it's on the field or off the field. And the people they bring in to talk to us and the resources that we use, like for the mental game, for like our family, for cohesiveness is huge. And I think that stuff shows on the field because they focus so much on it off the field.
What I guess one way too I wanted to ask it is like, because when you think of the worst ways a coach can impact your life, because they have a lot of impact and they can they control your whole schedule, you know, except for like you have a week off, but you really should do workout still. So in the worst way, it's, you know, what you hear about is like a lack of communication, and then like a lack of like humanity in terms of like knowing that, you know, you're a student and like seeing the humanity in you. So I guess is it like something that you could contrast by seeing, or what you hear about with friends with other coaches in terms of like being that human value, or is there a way you can describe that? I'm trying to contrast it with the bad stories of coaches we may hear off the record.
No, I mean, I've definitely heard bad stories with my friends and their coaches and their experiences with that. And I mean, obviously playing time is super important to everyone here. That's why we came here, because we want to get on the field. And I think they do a really good job of communicating that to us. And like, we know what we should expect prior to every game. And so like, if I hypothetically was starting for multiple games in a row and then I wasn't going to the next game, they have a conversation with you. And I think that's something that you don't find at every school. Like they won't go out of their way to talk to you. And I also think compared to other schools, the way they like pour into every person on the team is different. Because when I was injured, like they had no reason to like reach out to me, or, you know, I wasn't getting on the field. I wasn't benefiting them in any way. But like coach would send me a text before every game, or like would text me at halftime when I was at home and say like, what do you see? Like what can be the team, that type of stuff. And like the way that she poured into me at that point in my life, like helped me so much. And like it showed me why I chose here.
Those little things go a long way, especially when when you're dealing with the mental doubt of being you're doubting yourself, you're doubting, like you said, if you should still be, like those things go a really long way. So that's not, and by the way, all these are things that like affect the professional players too. I think of covering the game and like the things I hate about professional coaches too, who, you know, it's not even like the same thing of like kind of young people and kids. the professional coaches don't have these qualities either of like actual, communication. And that's cool to hear. She is, I was so impressed looking up the kind of nuances of her resume too. And you kind of alluded to this, but part of her staying there, I think, is that clearly she's been able to go off and do national team gigs of health, either just in a short term, like with a tournament, but she's been with the full team. She's coached younger teams. How much of that do you talk to her about? I feel like I would be wanting to, she was a part of the Tokyo Olympics, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's gone a few times since I've been here, and it's actually cool to talk to her about like the players on the team.
Well, yeah, that's all you'd want to do is ask.
Yeah. And so I think it's interesting because she has this like insider perspective, but you can also see like how much of their game that she brings to our game. Yeah. And like, it's cool that we can use like similar tactics to them. And I think it makes us stronger as a team, but also like the fact that she has that opportunity and still chooses us and we'll get back here in time for preseason, like is so cool to me.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty good for you guys too. You're like, oh, is it nice to have someone who can maybe put in a good word who is doing that? Yeah, it helps us too. So yeah, you're going to be psyched about it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would think, I would just be asking, just wanting to hear stories. You're like, just tell me off the record.
Yeah, no, she told us a ton of stories about the players, which was funny and cool.
Also, well, and it was a very, it was a tough time. It's kind of a good tournament to get insight from, because like I was waking up to try to watch those because I happened to be underemployed enough to try to do that. And it was a tough tournament, right? Like, and they still got fourth or whatever, but like for them, they really underachieved, and so I'm sure watching them deal with it and kind of having to take it forward. I mean, it's which also a lesson in what failure is for the women's national team is a lot different than any other team. Because they still did fine. Who do you? I mean, I could guess, but who do you? If you watch the national team, or you're like asking her, like, who's your favorite national team player to watch?
I have a few, and I kind of switch off. Recently I've really loved watching Mal Pugh, obviously, until her injury, or Mal Swanson now. I think she's really cool, and I love Sophia Smith as well.
Yeah.
I think they're both really, really fun to watch, and obviously, like, in my position, like forward type of thing. Mm-hmm. And the way they move on and off the ball has been like inspiring for me, and watching their movements off the ball has actually helped me a lot to like work on my positioning on the field. And so I like watching them. Yeah,
it's a fun group of like the new attackers with different skills, and it's like, because we just had a lot of people like being stalwarts there for so long, so it's like this new generation has a lot of space with like Tobin and Rapinoe and everyone, and even like Alex Morgan will only so many more. So it is pretty. It's cool to see that we have there plenty of those, and like Trinity, Rodman, everybody, they're ready to do it. We were talking before about you're done with finals yesterday. Congrats.
Thanks.
Major, is it biobehavioral health, your major still?
Yeah.
So talk about what, the thing is, you're a redshirt junior, but you've been in school a while too. So I don't know where you are at in terms of like planning your academic future along with your soccer future, but where are you at in terms of the major, and how's that going?
Yeah, I'm basically done with my major, but I added 2 minors, and then I'm actually taking all the classes for pre-med just in case I end up wanting to go to med school, because my major is kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so I want to say 1 class left for my major, but then I have like 2 towards my minor. So I'm actually extending my degree through next fall. Mm-hmm. So then I can just graduate after my 5th year fall. Mm-hmm. But I don't know exactly what I want to do after college yet. We'll see. Because
nice little backup of having med school as an option. Shout out to the family. Caitlin's doing just fine, guys. I love it.
Because obviously, if I can keep playing soccer, I think that's my first choice right now.
Cool.
Not sure how that'll change or stay the same after next fall. We'll see.
Well, your timing's pretty good, because the USL Super League is slated to start. It's supposed to start this coming fall. We'll see. That'd be very exciting. And then the WPSL Pro is supposed to start the next year. And there's a Canadian. I say all these leagues all the time, so I'm excited. But a Canadian women's pro team is slated to start, I think, in 2025 as well. So it looks like your really bad early college season timing, it has maybe slid into positive timing for a potential pro career. So that at least is nice. But nice. That's well, and congrats being one of the many players with impressive academic regimen along with soccer. But yeah, that is nice. You extending it, maybe like the last semester will be a little more low key.
Yeah, I'll be in like 2 classes, so it'll be nice.
A little still student athlete, but maybe like the athlete's like a little bit.
A little more athlete. My final call.
This is a minor detail. Maybe it's something with the ACL. I saw as a first and sophomore, you were listed as 5'10", now 5'9". Is it injury or is it veteran humbleness? You used to say 5'9", 5'10" because you had some half like 9, 5, but now you're like, you know what? I'm only 5'9" and a quarter. I'm going to say 5'9".
I think I've always been 5'9". If we're being honest, I'm pretty sure I told our media person 5'9" too when I came, and I think
the coach is goosing it up a little bit. They're trying to intimidate. Well, maybe they were putting you as a center back. They wanted to list you as 5. They wanted you to be a little more 5'10". Yeah. They wanted you more imposing.
I've always kind of been in between. I usually say 5'9", but I actually don't even know what I really am. Like maybe 5'9.5". Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm the perfect height where I can't do it. I'm 5'11" and a little bit. I'm like, that's the dude's lie of saying you're 6 feet. I could never do it. I never ever do it. 5'11", telling the truth. Okay, so now these are a couple quiz items on Penn State for you, as promised. So I said they've been in the tournament a long time, like many years in a row. I might have let it slip. I don't know. But do you know how many years in a row you've now been in the tournament?
I think I know it's in the teens. I know that. I want to say
I might have hinted at the number in another context.
I know. That's what I'm trying to remember. It
might be Andra she is the reason you've been in the tournament. Every year she's been there, you've been in the tournament. That's why I wondered if it was the beginning of it too, but no. 29, baby.
Is it 29? I did not know that. I knew it was a lot. I didn't know it was that many.
It's you, and yeah, we know. Yeah, we know what it is. It's the training. I mean, in a sport where there's way too many ACL injuries. I mean, the trainers play a big role. So maybe she is the difference. But yeah, 14 Elite Eights, most of any Big Ten schools. And then the other thing I was going to ask you, one of these will be really easy. But I wanted to ask if you knew the other 4 of the top 5 scorers for Penn State this year. So a little difficult because you and Peyton Linehan is right up there with you with 10 goals. So that's I know you have that.
Scores.
Oh, but you have a lot of people who score and assist, and so these are the next 3 in goals.
In goals, Mika, Olivia Borgen. I think Olivia Borgen's above Mika. Corey Dyke.
Yeah, Mika and Corey Dyke both have 5, and Olivia Borgen has 6 goals, 3 assists. Sorry to the rest of Penn State. We could have run through a bunch of you who had 4 assists and 3 assists and a bunch of stuff. You guys had a lot of offensive output, but yeah, no, you did. I figured you'd do okay with that. Shout out to her. She's aware. Are you aware? Are you aware because you're kind of tracking it through the season of like how well you're doing?
I knew Corey scored quite a few PKs, and so I knew she would be up there. And I knew obviously Peyton had a ton. And then I knew Olivia Borgen had a lot as well because she stepped up for us against Northwestern. That was a huge game for her. And then Mika had quite a few game winners because we'd put her up to the 9 with me.
Okay.
Down a goal. So I knew she'd be up there because she scored a few up there and she's really good at set pieces. So
shout out to Mika. Nice. What's your favorite goal you scored at Penn State?
Oh, I feel like it has to be. Oh no, I don't know. Maybe the game winner at Ohio State.
Okay,
that was pretty cool because it was like in the last few minutes, and we were actually losing in the first half.
Okay, cool.
Maybe that one.
Because just the context, or it was a good goal by you,
probably the context of it. Because we always have a rivalry with Ohio State. Obviously, Penn State, Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State sucks. I mean, yeah. Sorry, Ohio State.
They had beaten us last year by quite a bit. It was a bad game.
Yeah.
And so I think that was in the context probably my favorite one.
Nice. By the way, Ohio State, if you have a Minnesotan next year, happily I'll interview the Minnesotan, of course. Sorry, but I'm talking to a Penn State player, so yeah, Ohio State.
You have to say you hate Ohio State.
And I'm a Minnesota fan, and I actually don't like Ohio State. So yeah. So what about your favorite goal otherwise? Because you played ECNL, and like I'm just wondering too, like, you
like
scored
overall?
a bike one weekend, or like you something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Or just because it was in a big tournament, you guys also did well as the Thunder Academy. Obviously, I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's,
My favorite club goal,
or high school. I mean, yeah.
High school might have been. I think I know. Holy Angels for high school was definitely my favorite because we were losing 2-0 and we ended up winning 3-2 in this game.
Nice.
And it was like a similar type of thing. Like the game winner was in like the last like minute or two. And like that was probably my craziest high school game.
Was it in like the Vikings football stadium or something?
No. It was actually just against them, but we played them every year in the first game of the season.
Wow. Yeah.
And they had beaten us every year. So this was my senior year.
That's a shitty game to open the season with. That's tough.
Yeah. So that was probably my favorite one for high school.
Mm-hmm.
For club, I don't know. Maybe like when we went to the Final Four. I mean, that was obviously just because of the circumstances really exciting.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the goals there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably that.
That must have been. Yeah, I could only imagine at that ECNL Final Four how many college coaches were there emailing after that.
Yeah.
Were you mentioned one of your teammates like taking the PKs for you more? Is that something like, I don't think you didn't have any penalty shootouts in your playoffs, either conference or like this year, but is that something you've done before? Like, do you like penalty shootouts? As a neutral observer, like they're kind of fun, even if it's like a silly thing sometimes.
I honestly really liked them in club in high school, and I always took our PKs like when I was growing up, but I haven't taken one obviously since college started. I think I was going to be in the lineup if we went into PKs. I think I was definitely in like the lineup at some point. I just don't know where in the order. I like PKs, but I think there's a lot more pressure now than I ever felt in club.
Yeah.
But I think they're cool. I love watching them as well. Like I loved watching them in the NCAA tournament. But being in them is a little more stressful. But I think the way we approach them is better than most teams in the country, and I think we go in with a confidence that like allows us to win.
But you said you weren't 100% sure if you would have been. So it wasn't a case where he said these are the five. It's more a case of you have a sense based on just standing in the team and like what if he's trusted you before. Yeah,
they like don't say because we never went into them obviously, so they would never gave a lineup. But we knew kind of if you were in like the top 10. Okay. And then they were going to give the lineup obviously right before.
Yes, you think they're going to do the eye test? They're just going to look and see? Because you do kind of need to do that a bit. Yeah.
I think it honestly did depend like on the game you had. Like if you had missed something else earlier in the game, maybe they wouldn't put you in just like from a confidence level, that type of thing.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure what goes into it.
Interesting. But I like asking because it's interesting which coaches, a lot of coaches like will either get very like you'll have the tournament in practice and then it's like you're the five and then kind of, and then or it's like or they think it's better to not do that psychologically because they have to like make the call on the day. So I'm just interested in it. Yeah, that's of how they. But also you just if you win the game, you don't have to do.
Yeah, that was our mindset. If we don't we obviously all practice them. They had our whole lineup practice them all the time. That we had everyone take a few after every practice, so we were prepared. But there was no reason for us to give a lineup because we didn't want to go into PKs.
Is it a thing where like keepers like will talk really big? Like I used to play some really bad goalkeeper, but like the people who they like when they talk about how they read you and are they reading you or are they just guessing? Do you think, Kaitlyn? How much are your keepers reading in on you?
They're for sure reading us. Like we know the cues that they look for, and so we try and avoid those because
your hips and your feet and
like the way you set up, they can like read that apparently, which I never knew in like club. I don't think club goalkeepers knew that either. I think that's more of a college thing. So I never had to worry about that. But like that's definitely something. Like when I took my first PK here, Tim was like, "Yeah, you can't do that. It makes it so obvious." And I was like, "Okay."
Cool. I won't ask what it made it obvious before because we don't want to. We don't want Ohio State. We don't need Ohio State using this next year, Kaitlyn, and busting up. Yeah. Speaking of, beating Ohio State, I wanted to ask, where's your favorite place to play? Whether that's like because it's a good stadium, or it was a cool place that you actually got to go? Like, I don't know if you got to go to California or anything, or like, you know.
I mean, my favorite's obviously here. This is my favorite stadium.
Yeah, wait, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, other place.
Yeah. We had the Big Ten tournament at the Columbus Crew Stadium these past 2 years.
You did? Sick.
Yeah, and that was really, really
You mean
cool.
the new?
Yeah, the new one, like lower.com.
Wow.
So when we won the Big Ten tournament last year at lower.com, that was really cool. And I think that's like a credit to the Big Ten because they provided that for us. And it's just the women. The men don't do that. And so I think that's really cool for them to be supporting us in that way.
Wow. Holy crap, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely the coolest stadium I've played in by a long shot. But it obviously was pretty empty when we played.
Of course. I mean, because you got all to travel.
Yeah, but it was really, really cool.
Yeah. Just getting to use the locker rooms, right? Did you get to use like the home? Right? Was it still cool? I mean, it's a pretty new stadium. It's like 5 years old or something.
Yeah, it's very new. I know like last year they were just like still getting some stuff for it. Like I think it's like a few years old, but they gave us a full tour last year. We kind of got one this year, but like we had already been there, so they kind of shortened it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was cool, like all the lights and stuff and everything they used for the stadium, they showed us all of that. And so that was really cool. And their locker rooms are really nice. And I'm assuming we were in like the guest ones too. Like we obviously weren't in theirs. But
you probably didn't know.
Yeah, but it was cool, and it was really, really nice of the Big Ten to provide that for us.
Nice. How about where's the best game otherwise in the Big Ten? Is there a place that like the fans are the most intimidating, or that there's the best attendance? I mean, there's a mix. Like, you know, even like the Gophers, it's just 1,000 seated. Like those will be really, you know, it's a really fun place to see a game.
Yeah, no, I've never played at Minnesota. I've
seen Northwestern's really pretty. I don't know.
Yeah, Northwestern was cool. I don't love turf personally, and so that's why it's not my favorite because it's turf.
Yeah.
But on the water is really cool. And I've seen Minnesota games, and their stands are crazy, which I think is so cool. Obviously, haven't experienced that myself. The fans were pretty crazy at Michigan.
Yeah.
When we went there this past year, they were pretty crazy.
Yeah, they get people out.
Yeah, Michigan State also, honestly, was pretty crazy. Those, I don't know, their fans are pretty wild. They were yelling at us quite a bit.
What's your favorite sport to go to at Penn State? Do you go to other games?
Football is definitely the favorite. I've only been to a few games because we're not really like allowed to when we have games.
Yeah, you have.
But obviously, like 110,000 people in that stadium, you can't beat that. So
it is wild.
And other than that, I love the hockey games here. Pagula is like a brand new facility. It's a few years old. I don't know exactly how old. But it's super, super nice. And like the men's hockey games especially sell out, and it's really cool in there.
Nice. How about if you were playing a sport in college that wasn't soccer, would it be hockey? What would you be playing?
I played hockey all the way up until freshman year of high school, and then I had to quit for soccer. So I for sure would play hockey.
Nice. The one thing, just looking on YouTube, Kaitlyn MacBean, I think your dad has an account, and maybe there, but I didn't know. I'm not going to look to verify. But there was like something like Kaitlyn playing hockey, and I was like, maybe it's Kaitlyn playing hockey.
It probably was.
Craig? No.
Craig, yeah, Craig.
Then maybe look.
It definitely was me.
Dad, you did your work trying to get the recruiting video out. Yeah, you know, good on you. Good on you. Well, Kaitlyn, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you that you're looking to the next level, seeing if you can be a pro, and you got one more year at Penn State to do it. Maybe make another run past the Elite Eight. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.